That fits into our mission supporting Austrian companies in accessing international projects. My name is Michael Zimmermann. I'm in charge here at Advantage Austria headquarters for international projects, for project finance, innovation and sustainability. So that all goes together very tight. Banks are increasing their standards when it comes to sustainability. And in order to become sustainable, you have to be very innovative. So that's why we work together a lot with development banks, who on the one hand side provide the funding, and on the other side also give some requirements on what to do when it comes to environmental and social standards. But the big question, of course, is how can companies access those projects, whether they are in the private or in the public sector. So that's why today we're going to look at where you can find information on tendering, on upcoming tendering, which is, from my perspective, where you should put the most focus on, because when there is the tender on the market, it's probably already very, very late. So we're looking at those projects that are in the pipeline, where companies can still engage with funding and implementing agencies. But it's also interesting to know who is winning projects. So we're also going to have a look into awarded contracts. And I'm very happy that Paul Baracci is giving us an insight into the database today. And he's also happy to take your questions. We had the export day this week, so if there were some concrete questions on specific projects, I think we can also pick up some examples that gives you very concrete insights what you can do with this database. So I will hand now over to Paul. Thank you all for joining, and please feel free to pose your questions, and thank you all for joining. I wish you an interesting workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to have you all, and once again, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Paul. I do customer support here at Development Aid, and what I have in plan for today is to share my screen with you so you could have a live exploration of all the tools you can access through Development Aid. And as also Michael mentioned, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So feel free to either type your questions in comments, or when I will also make sure to stop after each topic to make sure all your questions are taken. Now, without any further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen with you so we could explore everything you can access through Development Aid, and also personal tips and tricks on how I save time on this website. You should be able to see my screen in a second or two. We are at the Development Aid homepage. If my screen is visible, we will be exploring three menus. The funding menu, which is the flagship product included in your current subscription. This is where we'll be able to access that tendering information that Michael discussed. This is where we'll be able to find those projects in the pipeline, as well as the tenders that are currently open to receive proposals. To give you a bit more context, Development Aid is a platform that strives to bring together experts, donors, and organizations. And one of the main ways we do that is by monitoring over 190 donors. To be exact, the number is one short of 200 in terms of the sources that we cover, including international development banks such as, let's say, World Bank, EBRD, donors such as European Commission and all of EuropeAid's directorates. Now, using every on the platform involves working with our search, and the search that we have on our website is the key of efficiency. So let's have a look at the search available funding menu. This is where we would be able to find tenders at all stages, and also maybe some even earlier information such as, let's say, even country strategies. So even though we have a search bar available immediately to help you find results even with your keywords are found in documents. Still, I would recommend first going through advanced filters. This way, you'd first of all be able to easily and quickly create a search. And on top of that, it will allow your search to be broader. These fields will also make sure that you will get results regardless of the language that they have been posted in. We're going to make an example of a search very quick, but we'll also explore how each of these fields work. As an example, most filters will allow you to have more than just a selection. So if you're interested in, let's say, tenders in either one or another country, or let's say on two different continents, we can do that. Let's say we'll select the African and the Asian continents in this context. The way you can interpret this is with an imaginary or between Africa and Asia. So either any country from Africa or any country from Asia or any combination of these regions and countries will be accepted as a result. The same will go for sectors. If we're looking for something such as, let's say, environment and let's say energy, the same will work. Either one of the two are required or both of them. You can choose this. You can choose to change this behavior. However, instead of having environment or energy as the sectors you're interested in, you can be strict and say that I want both of them in every single result. And this is possible using the any all toggle. Still, I would recommend sticking to the default any setting to make sure you don't miss out on potentially good results. It's also important to mention that fields can be expanded, which can bring up some extra functionality. As an example, if you choose to expand the locations filter, apart from giving you countries and continents, you will also get the ability to select custom regions. As an example, if you're researching MENA region tenders, it's quite easy and it will have all the countries selected for you. So it's a very straightforward way to search on many websites. Then we have category. This is where we are able to focus on specific activities such as, let's say, consulting services or works. You can also choose to combine them if needed. Funding agencies is where you'd be able to get acquainted with the sources that we cover, or if you decide to omit some donors, you can also do that. You can choose from this list. However, since it's such a large list of sources, I would recommend going through the expansion icon. This way, if you want to ignore a few sources, that can be done using the Select All button. Select all, and if, let's say, I don't want the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, I can simply unselect it without having to go through that large list. Status is the next stage, and it is quite essential for any search. It corresponds to the stage that we're currently in terms of either the project or the tender within that project. There are three stages. Early intelligence, and you can think of this as it comes out before a project is actually approved. So while this information can be very useful for preparation, in some cases also be considered too early. Still, we provide it at the earliest possible point, in our case being country programming. These are strategy papers that we are publishing from donors that just mention how they're planning to either spend funds or invest in specific countries within a time span of several years. After country programming, we have formulation, and this is attributed to monthly operational summaries that may, let's say in World Bank's case, describe future or upcoming projects. Approval shows us that these projects that are still in the early pipeline are being negotiated and appraised. And right after this point, we will be able to move forward and we will know for sure that a project has definitely been approved already. And after projects are being approved, our website will move on to the implementation section. And you can think of this as the tender part of a project. Within it, we have the forecast stage. And just like the previous ones, this one is also meant to help you prepare. At this point, the tender is still not open, and forecast can provide intel on upcoming tenders. So it is one of the most useful stages on the website. Of course, we are now then touching upon the open stage of a tender, which is quite self-explanatory since we know what the deadline is at this point. We know what needs to be, what this project is asking for specifically, and we have the submit proposals. And our website will also usually include the link or the platform that will allow you to submit proposals through the original portal of, let's say, the bank or the donor that you're interested in. Now, as the open stage, we will continue to update tenders and grants. So let's say when a shortlist and an award is being published and made public by the donor, we will pick it up and we will add it as an update to existing tender pages. So these awards and shortlists that we are naturally updating on our website, these are being processed further, and we will explore why we do that in the organizations menu, when we will be able to find organizations linked to their past projects. And we start doing that at this exact point. Once a document available, our teams are analyzing those documents and processing them. Once our teams know which organizations were awarded, we then find them within our database and we link them. And we'll explore that more in depth when we get to the organization section, but it all starts here when we are already tracking official donor information and their official documents. The other fields are just as straightforward. Even though your membership gives you access to all on the website, you have the opportunity to ignore opportunities that are only for individuals. Instead, you can use organizations for that. Still, both are accessible. Modified after, very simple field. Use it if you want to ignore any tenders that haven't been changed or posted after the date that you've selected. So potentially you can add January 1st, and you'll only see what was updated or added since the beginning of the year. And lastly, a budget slider, if that's needed. With this being said, even though filters are the recommended way to start any search, there are cases when we need to go further. A simple example of that is when sectors is not specific enough in my case. Let's say that I would still like to focus on environment, but maybe be more specific. Maybe climate change or adaptation or forestry. In these cases, I would recommend adding keywords on top. And our website does use keywords in a more advanced way. If anyone is familiar with using operators, words like and or between keywords, principles are usable on our website, and I'm about to show you every single functionality you can use with our search bar if more than one keyword is something you want to opt for. So let's just start simple. What happens when we just have 2 or more keywords separated by spaces? Let's say climate change as an example. Between climate and change will act plus. Therefore, keywords are required in every single result. Oh, we have one more attendee joining us. So apologies for the brief interruption. And hello to anyone who's just joined. Welcome to the training session. So what I was about to mention is that when you use keywords to find results on the website, having a space between them means that it's climate and change, both need to be in the result. However, I don't know if I mentioned that already, they don't have to be searched in this exact order. Climate could be mentioned in a document, change could be mentioned in the title. So if you want to give more context to your search, it's always possible to add double quotes. And as you would expect, double quotes will now search for this, this combination in this exact order. Going back to that space, I can go ahead and add another requirement to the same line.
Жарко или нормально пока?
I'm very sorry, would you kind of mute the microphone if there are no questions so far? Thank you. So having a space between climate change and forest just means we're searching for climate change in this order and forest. But in most cases, we might want for our keywords to be options instead of requirements, in which case you would be able to use the word or. And as you would expect, either climate change or forest or both of them need to be found. And this is a very popular way of searching using keywords. It gives you the ability to add as many keywords as needed, and you don't have to worry that it's too strict. You can have it still be wide by having multiple keywords separate. And please note that these keywords are searched in titles, descriptions, and even documents. So as an example, if you search for an organization name, if it's mentioned in somewhere inside an award, you'll be able to track that information down using the text. But there are more options to cover here. Another example is using asterisks at the end of any roots. In my case, if I add an asterisk at the end of the word forest, it will search for any other variation that starts with the same root. Therefore, I will be covered if I'm also interested in words like the plural, forests, or even forestry. It is also possible to use the word not. Practically speaking, I haven't found much use of the word not, even though it might be useful when you find that there are a lot of irrelevant results that match a pattern. Still, the word not has the risk of missing out on results if the keyword that goes after not is just mentioned in a different context. Still, it is available. In my case, while searching for climate change, I am telling the search that I want it to ignore any tender that has any mention of anything that starts with the word forest. I'll go back to or in this example. And there is one more thing you can do. You can use more advanced Boolean operators like round brackets. Round brackets can be very useful when, let's say, you have one requirement, let's say one specific word you need to be there every time, but you give it the ability maybe to be paired with a number of keywords. So if that made no sense to you, let me cover an example. Let's say I'm searching for climate change or forest. However, I want the General Procurement Notice abbreviation or the GPN abbreviation. Let's say I want it every time. Regardless whether we found climate change or forest, I also want GPN to be paired with them. If I just add GPN at the beginning and add a space, the search will just look for either GPN plus climate change or the word separately. Round brackets can help us in this case. In a way, we will be able to multiply the keyword GPN with everything we have inside the brackets. The simple result of this will be either GPN plus climate change or GPN plus forest. In case you would like a reminder for all these operators and functions you can use in our search bar, you can click How to Search, and this can also serve as a cheat sheet. You might find some new things here. I did not mention that you can replace not with a minus. You can replace or with type or vertical bar. That can be used to save some space if needed, but they will work exactly the same way as we explored it right now. While it's a great advantage that we can search in documents alongside titles and descriptions, you still have the choice to limit your keyword search to certain parts of text. If you click Search In, you would be able to, as an example, ignore the titles and descriptions and only search for your keywords in attachments. Personally, I recommend taking advantage of all the text available on our website, especially since we're also adding the documents, and this does help in increasing the accuracy of the search. So this is the first part of the training. Before we move on to automation and saving time when making these searches, does anyone have any questions? I'll check the chat as well. All right, if no questions so far, then let's head to saving time. First of all, making these searches does take time, especially coming up with a search that is optimal for daily use does take some experimentation with the search to make sure you receive the relevant results. And with this context, it's always useful to rebuild the same searches. I highly recommend saving any search that you've built so far, and it makes it available to be repeated. So saving a search will indeed make it reusable and repeatable. I'll just save my search by clicking on the Save Search icon under all the filters. And apart from making it reusable, it also gives us the opportunity to get the newest results of our search. Here are mine on the left side menu. As you can see, I have 11 searches, and the one I've just created is at the bottom. any other search I click on will always give me the newest results that and all the results that match that search. Saving your searches is great. However, you can also automate it a step further. Our website can help you create alerts that are email notifications that work the same way as the search does. In a nutshell, if you create an alert, it's always going to be based on a search. Therefore, every single filtering criteria be taken into account, even going as far as the search in icon. This will also be saved inside the alert. Now, once an alert based on a search is saved, it will start sending you results automatically, in exactly the same way how you decided to filter them from the website. Let's say that the search that I have in front of me is something that I would like to monitor on a daily basis. An alert would be ideal for that. All I need to do is finish the search and then click Add to Alert. You can do this countless times. We don't have limits for how many alerts can be created. So I'll give it a title, Alert Test. It works via email, so naturally we'll need to add some recipients. And by the way, they don't have to be users of our website. It can be any email address that can receive these notifications. And as you can see, I'm adding 2 email addresses, and you can do this as well by just separating them using a comma. Then we'll just add 2 more things, the frequency. So if it's something I want on a daily basis, I will choose daily. But as you can see, you have the choice to move to up to monthly. Then we'll choose the time. So based on your time zone, you can change when should the alert be sent to you. At the moment, the settings are they do default to Central Europe time, but it still gives you the flexibility to receive it. Let's say if I would be based in let's say Asia, I might be more inclined to use the alerts sent earlier in the morning. But still, it's up to you, and each alert can have its own time. In my case, I'll choose noon Central Europe time, since I'll be able to get the tenders that we receive the morning. Once more, you can do this countless times. We don't have limits on the list, so as many searches as you have can be automated this way. Since you can still have so many alerts, it's also easy to go back to your existing ones and make changes or remove them completely. If you'd like to do that, just click on the tender alert on the left side menu, and this tender alert page, the list of your alerts. And let's say if you've decided to create around 16 like I did, they will be visible like as you can see in this list. And you might also notice that I have a lot of alerts that are turned off. And this toggle switch can help you stop the email from coming in case you don't want to delete the alert. You can choose to go back to it by just switching it back on. Still, in my case, what I want to do is I want to remove one keyword from my search. Let's say I'm not pleased with the results that my alert is generating. Well, I can always find my alert. Let's say this one alert test. And if I click on the name of the alert, I can easily changes. So let's say I want to ignore the keyword forest. I can do that. Now the search will change its behavior. Then I can click Save to apply any of these changes. And I can do this for any alert. And you might have also noticed that a bin icon will be generated if you hover your cursor over each alert, and this will simply allow you to permanently delete your alerts if needed. So even though alerts are such a simple functionality, it's very popular and highly recommended. If you have any questions up until this point, feel free to address them. Once more, I'll check the chat just to make sure we don't have any questions there. Okay, understood. So if anyone wants to ask anything, you're more than welcome. After we cover your questions, we'll explore what you can do inside tender pages. All right, if no questions still, let's open a tender. And what I just did, I opened the tender that let's say contracted by the UN office at Nairobi. So by the UN and UNEP. Okay, so this is just an example of an open tender. So that means that we have a deadline. Seems the deadline is at the end of this month. So in some cases, it might be too late to take on this opportunity. So it's always recommended to be able to identify tenders before they reach the open stage through those statuses we covered, like forecasts, which can be very useful. Here's the expression of interest attached. And one thing that I often do on tender pages is sending it to colleagues. Let's say you have colleagues that don't have access to development aid, or it could be a partner organization. It's totally up to you what you can share on the website. So if I want to share this page with the documents and everything, all you need is the send icon at the top. It has an envelope drawn next to it. So on send, it will compose a regular email and it will self-contain all the information on this page. And to be more specific, it will contain the details, the title, all the documents, and the text description of this opportunity. And you can add any email address here. So even let's say email@tab.com can be added, and I will be able to send this page to that address. Just like alerts, I can add a comma and choose to add multiple people. I can just send it to myself if needed. And then after clicking send, the information will just be presented in this form we're used to, just a regular. Our website also has a folder functionality. It's very easy to use. And regardless whether you're looking inside tenders or if you're exploring our organization's database, folders can be used on both. Let's click Add to Folder and we'll see everything it has to offer. If I click Add to Folder, I have the choice to select one of my personal folders that I've created. If I don't have any folders, I can choose to create them from the same pop. You might also notice that there is a shared section. This is my colleague Dennis, and he has shared his World Bank folder with me. I can do the same thing with any colleague that has an account on development aid with my organization. So having multiple accounts gives you the ability to collaborate on the same folders. Since Dennis has shared his folder with me, I am able to save the tenders that I find to our common folder. And this is exactly what I'll do. So now Dennis will be able to see this tender inside the folder that he has created and shared with me. Also, within a multiple user environment, you'd be able to leave comments are available at the bottom of any page. Once again, it could be a tender, it could be a grant, it could also be an organization. And these comments are fully private. This means that only you and your colleagues would be able to read and see these comments. They are not accessible to us at Development Aid. They are completely us as well as to any other user of the platform. We designed them solely to help you communicate as a team or even just leave notes for yourself. So we did mention how you can save items to folders and what folders I had, but once you have some folders set up and once you save items to them, you might want to explore them on the left side. Once again, they're very easy to use. And let's say if you'd like to share a folder with one of the other users from your organization, you can easily locate a folder, click on the three dots, and a share function will appear. Then you'll choose your colleague that should have access to this folder. And I'll choose my colleague Mariana in this case, like so. So does anyone have any questions in regards to the funding menu so far? We just have a few things left to cover before we move on to organizations. All right, the chat is also okay. So before we move on to organizations, it's important to mention that your subscription gives you access to grants and not just tenders. If you are interested in access as well as tenders, please note that the functionality remains identical. Every single element we covered, like the search or alerts or even sending via email, everything is available inside the separate grants database. Therefore, feel free to use it if it's relevant in any way. The experience and the interface remains unchanged here, except for a few extra filters like eligible applicant types and eligible nationalities. So this covers the functionality and the features of the funding menu. Once more, please let me know if there are any questions. Otherwise, we will explore the next section, organizations. I am on my browser window, so you might notice me going back and forth between Teams and the website just to make sure the chat is if there are any questions. So let's have a look at organizations. This is that can be used in various ways. You can use it to you can use it to conduct research, and also use it to analyze competition. What happens here is we have a database of over 200,000 organizations registered with us. A lot of these organizations are members of Development Aid. And as you saw with us publishing tenders, any awards and shortlists that we are aware of through the donors, they are automatically going to be linked to these organizations' profiles using our efforts. Now, even though we mentioned that indeed, if an organization will be awarded and that award is made public, that information will be provided on the website. This is also a limitation of development aid. So if we're not aware of an award being made public, unless an organization has themselves published that award, we would not be able to have it on our website simply due to this limitation. And even though we are ones that mainly link awards with organizations, I also briefly mentioned that organizations can publish their own. If that's the case, this can be done using publish an award here on the left side menu. So just to give you a bit more of a map, organizations and publish an award is available if arises to have a more visible profile or a more complete profile on the website. Now, in terms of finding organizations, we have two methods. One method is through this simple search that we have. So we can click search by advanced filters, and we will have filters like legal residence, making this method quite ideal for finding local partners. And apart from searching just based on where these organizations are from, you can also search with the words in. So if we look for, let's say, in the country Kenya, now we will only get the organizations that have at least one award that took place, that was implemented in Kenya. So this first method is very simple. We can use these criteria to find organizations. Let's actually have a look at what's included in a profile. So here's an example of an organization. They're also members with us. And first of all, these details like logos, details and descriptions. This information is fully under your control based for your profile. It's also any organization can make changes to this information to make sure it aligns with what's actual. And then we move on to automatically generated info on every profile page. And this just shows a distribution of their awards by locations, donors, and sectors, and automatically generated lists of partners and competitors. All of this is based on a specific data on the website. And to find the data that this is based on, just scroll to and you'll be able to identify the fourth tab, Shortlist/Awards. This is where we'll find their past projects. So opening the shortlist and awards of organization, once again, will bring up all their awards and shortlists. If this list is too large, in my case, 34 might not be too much to search through an organization. However, if there are more than 34, you can use a mini search inside these shortlists/awards. So let's say we're interested in this organization's experience, let's say specifically in Kenya, and let's say for any, let's say World Bank tender, if that's the case, or let's say African Development Bank. Let's say AFDB. Locations Kenya, and why not choose, let's say, the administration sector? Seems 0 results, so we can move on immediately if we did not find any results this way. if they have anything with the, and it seems they just don't have any awards with the African Development Bank. See Kenya, seems no awards in that country. So if we were looking for organizations that have such experience, we could have moved on immediately. Still, these awards are very useful and they're worth exploring on the website. These awards that we see here, these are separate pages that we create once we found out about an award based on a tender. Once the award is published, as mentioned, we process that info. And the process of that information involves creating an entry in our awards database. The awards database itself can be found very easily. It's in organizations, and on the left you can click on awards. And this will just include all of these awards for all organizations. And that awards menu is what we'll explore next, how we can find organizations just by searching for past projects. In this case, let's just have a look at one of this organization's past awards. Here is one. This is a World Bank tender. We can more details. The value is always included, which will not be available inside the tender itself. And one important thing to mention is that there are tenders published by us through official and verifiable information, and there might be awards published directly through organizations, and there might not be an official tender backing that up. And in these cases, if you're curious which information is verifiable, I would say that if you find any link inside associated funding, you will definitely be able to trace back this information and verify it through using the official documentation. This will just be the link to the tender that we could have found inside funding. And as you can see, it has an attached award notice. And I bet that Creative Associates, that organization we found, I bet that they are mentioned there. We can go back and forth between that award and that tender. So now we went back. Now, how is this page unique? Well, to answer that question, we just have to scroll to the bottom. We have an awarded section which allows you to immediately organization after you found their award. So now we can move on to that second method of finding organizations. Just click on awards, and let's say we want to find any organization that has any environment projects in Kenya. Let's say that this should be one of their awards. So I'm going to search for an award that took place in Kenya in the environment sector. Let's click search. So out of all of these 370 results, every page will have an organization that has been awarded. So we can go ahead and click on any one of these examples. Here is an example of a GIZ tender. We can scroll to the bottom, and here is the award awarded. Then we can click on that profile and explore it further. We can go ahead and look for other awards instead. So as you can see, the awards and the organization's database are very closely, and you can go back and forth between them. When practically speaking, what I usually do, if it does not matter where an organization is based in, I use awards to find organizations, since it would involve finding their expertise immediately. If I care where an organization is based from, organizations is a much better option since we have access to the legal residence filter. This is just a personal tip. Of course, both of these databases are accessible through your subscription. And lastly, you get access to sanctioned organizations on development aid. These are all publicly available blacklists that we take from official donor websites. You can double check if potential partners are sanctioned this way. So this concludes the features of the organizations menu. All we have left to cover is the bonus donors section. Tell me, are there any questions before we switch to donors? By the way, in case anyone will have any questions after today's session. I also understand that sometimes questions arise more after exploring the website a bit more. So I encourage you to contact us during your usage of the website to let us know if you have questions, if you need some clarifications, or if you just need some advice. So now that we move on to the donors menu, I'm confident to mention that this is more of a bonus of our website. It contains a lot of shortcuts to pages we explored already, such as funding and organizations. Let's just have a look at that. What we have here are profiles of funding agencies, and it's structured very similarly to organizations. There are profiles, and each profile has numerous tabs. These tabs would include shortcuts to their tenders, the same ones we saw in funding, grants, same jobs that are for individuals. CSPs stand for strategy papers. We could also find them in funding. And the last tab being contractors. This is now a list of organizations that have been awarded, in this case, by the World Bank. So this is just a slightly different way to access the awards and organizations section. Of course, if the central point is the donor itself, if that's what we are, if that's our starting point, of course. Apart from these shortcuts, we have some extra intel available. We have created a country eligibility tool that is based on official donor documentations, their regulations, or procurement guidelines. You can select a country. Let's say I'm based in Moldova, and I would like to check if I can work with the Caribbean Development Bank. The system will be able to verify that. It will be 1 out of 3 answers. A no, like I have. It could be a yes, confirmation, or it could be circumstantial eligibility. And if I'm not mistaken, I think for me personally, African Development Bank for me as only circumstantially eligible. And as you notice, I removed the donor, I just left the country, I clicked search, and it still gave me something. It gave me the list of donors that I would be eligible to work with, and still know about the ones that I would only be able to circumstantially be eligible. And since I mentioned that this is based on official donor procurement guidelines, naturally, those are also available on our website. On the left side, you will find the last element, procurement guidelines. And simply put, it's just a database of documents you can download. You can fill donor. So if you want, let's say, World Bank guidelines or regulations, it's very easy to find them. So includes the functionality I wanted to go through. So to mention the help icon, it plays a huge role on our website. Apart from allowing you to get in touch with our support team, the help icon can also serve as documentation. We do our best to write articles on the inner workings of our website, as well as even some tutorials. So in case you would like a reminder for all the definitions for all those tender stages we explored, we can just type in statuses. That's just the name of the filter. And these results will be articles rendered inside this isolated window. So you don't have to interrupt your work on the website. You will not lose any info. You can still choose to research our documentation this way. We did our best to document the most important aspects of our website. We also created a sectors guide. Yes, we did create a sectors guide that provides definitions and keyword pairings for our sector classification system. A lot of information to explore just under a simple search on the website. Despite this, once more, I still encourage you to contact us if you have any questions. We'll be more than happy to assist you at any point during your membership. Thank everyone for your time so far. Let's see if there are any questions. I'm curious if there's anything anyone would like to ask. Thank you for your feedback, Cindy. I appreciate your appreciation. So if there are no questions now, I understand the platform may be new to many of you, so it might take time for it to set in. Once more, I look forward to being in touch with every single one of you. If you have any questions, let me just. So you saw that help icon? Oh, excellent question, Mikhail. Thank you for asking. Let me show you that. Yes, indeed, you can create alerts based on every single criterion we have on our website. And I'll use your example. Let's can I set up a new alert on new awarded contracts in a country? Yes. Let's choose. It could be also be multiple countries. It can be one, or it can be, let's say, three. So let's say you are curious about all the awards that are issued in let's say the whole let's say Francophone African region. Just as an example, it will be all those countries. All I need to do to set up an alert for that is to make sure I have the status awarded selected. This will make sure that will only react to any tenders that have reached the awarded status. And since alerts react to either newly published tenders or existing tenders that went through updates, this is achievable this way. So once more, I chose just the countries, or one country if that's needed, the awarded status, and if other criteria, feel free to add them. If it's just awards in general, we can go ahead and click Add to Alert, and let's see awards in Africa. Then continue to that same process. Frequency and time. And this is how to create an alert that advises us about any new awards in the countries we needed. Thank you for your question, Mikhail. So if anyone is typing in more questions, of course we can provide a few more minutes, but still I'd like to thank everyone for coming to this training session. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll definitely be in touch if you'll have questions or need any help.
Thank you, Paul, for these insights and the training sessions. Also for me, there were some new things to learn, how to make best use out of the database. So for all the colleagues who have joined, we have now access for the next 2 years for this database, as this is an activity within our Go International project. So I'm happy to stay in touch with you, and I'm also there if you have any questions or ideas for the future, what we can do in order to ease the access for Austrian companies.
Oh, thank you as well, Martin.
Thank you all for joining.
Cu piacere. Thank you all. You have a great day and stay safe. I will make sure to share this recording with you after it's being processed. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your time.